Greetings, Patriot families. This is Rebecca Kick, your middle school principal. In lieu of doing a Patriot Pause this week for January, I wanted to go through a presentation that we shared with students last Monday as just a reminder of some of our programs and policies and procedures to help your student be successful for the remainder of this school year. So I wanted to share this information with you as well so that you can support your student in following these policies. First off is morning drop-off. Middle school students can be dropped off at the elementary, middle school, or student union, but drop-off for middle schoolers does not begin until 7:45. So please make sure that your student is not getting out of your vehicle until that time. At that point, once they come out, they can report to homeroom, and from homeroom, they will go to breakfast. All students should be seated in homeroom by 8:15, so that way we are not dealing with any tardies. For pickup, car riders, we have our car rider lines. We also have bus riders and approved walkers. If your student is a car rider, please make sure that you are picking them up in your designated pickup line. 6th through 8th graders are picked up at the student union, at the middle school. 5th graders are picked up at the student union. The only exception would be if that you have a 6th through 8th grader who also has a 5th grade sibling, then we have a form that you can complete in order for your 6th to 8th grader to be picked up with the student union with your 5th grader. If you have any questions about that, just contact me, rebecca.kick@yorkprepsc.org. If we have any students involved in after-school activities, they will stay in homeroom until we dismiss them to those activities once the staff member over those activities is available. But students are not allowed to walk to other buildings without permission, and as I mentioned, they should not be picked up in parking lots either. All car riders should be picked up by 3:30 Monday through Thursday and 2 o'clock on Friday. Attendance, state law mandates attendance. That is a state law for us. You can use up to a maximum of 5 parent notes. They are considered a lawful absence under parent note if it is for a student illness or for death in the family. So please make sure you're sending in those parent notes to attendance@yorkprepsc.org. We can also accept an unlimited number of doctor's notes. But do know, based on this state law, if your student is absent for 3 days in a row or for 5 total unexcused days, that does start the attendance plan process. If students are absent, they are responsible for making up all work during that absence to make sure that they can stay on top of everything. Cell phones. Cell phones on our campus from 7:30 to 3:30 need to be turned off and in backpacks. Students are not allowed to use cell phones on our campus in the middle school. So please make sure that you are not texting or trying to get in touch with your student during the school day via their cell phone. If they need to communicate with you, they can come up to our front office and give you a call. If you need to communicate with them, call the front office, which is 803-324-4400. The student union extension is 1200 and the middle school extension is 3100. We know a lot of our kids have smartwatches, and those are currently allowed on campus, but they cannot be used as a cell phone. So if they're using it as a watch, it's fine. But if they do start using it to record or to text, then they will fall under the cell phone policy and they will be confiscated. We do also require students to have earbuds because we use our Chromebooks a good bit and they often need to listen to something on their Chromebook, but we do not allow AirPods and we do not allow any wireless headphones or earbuds. So please make sure to have a wired set. Lastly, if your student is not feeling well, please encourage them to go see the nurse. If the nurse will evaluate them, and if they need to go home, the nurse will contact you. So that's how we can make sure that you are staying in the loop, but also that we're keeping your kids here and learning if they're available to do so. Chromebook policy. All students are assigned a Chromebook. Students are responsible for Chromebook care, and it could result in financial charges if your student is responsible for any damage or loss to that Chromebook. We also have multiple ways of tracking Chromebook usage. If your student is using the Chromebook inappropriately, they may lose access to that Chromebook, but we will also let you know so that you can work with them and make sure that they know that they need to make sure that they are using the Chromebooks in the correct way. Dress code. We made a lot of changes to our dress code this year, and we tried to make it a lot easier. So simply, there's no hats or head coverings in the buildings. That also applies to sunglasses. That's a safety thing that helps us identify our students. Otherwise, coverage should be from armpits to fingertips. So if you draw a line from armpit to armpit and it goes straight down to your fingertips, we don't want to see any skin. And so if they do have any dress code issues, they'll actually be sent up to the front office where the front office person will decide if it's against the dress code and will contact you if the student needs a change of clothes. Mastery-based learning. We already talked about this, so we will be very quick with this information because there is another mastery-based learning slideshow and video if you'd like to learn more about it. But we do have with mastery-based learning three different areas for grades. We have practice, and that is legitimately practice, where they practice new skills and content. That typically falls under what we would normally consider homework or classwork. Now, practice students will receive a grade based on their mastery of the content, but that grade does not impact their final score, because when you're practicing, that is when you want to make mistakes. That is when you want to take risks. So that way, if there's something you're not understanding, you know that you're not understanding it, and you can either ask for help or your teacher can reach out to you for additional instruction or support. But it's exceedingly important for students to complete practice, because otherwise no one knows if they're ready for their mastery check, which is where they actually demonstrate mastery. In mastery-based learning, students do have the opportunity to retake their mastery check once. So that way, if they do the mastery check and they realize that they didn't know it as well as they thought, they have the opportunity to receive additional instruction, do some additional practice, and then retake that mastery check that second time. Students also do tests and projects, which is where we combine multiple skills. Now, we like to really talk about this from a sports perspective. Uh, just like in sports and in mastery-based learning, practice doesn't count. It's where you build your skills. It's where you show commitment to the work. But if you're on a basketball team and you're attending practice, that's awesome. But it doesn't add any points to your game. If a team all goes to practice all week, the ref doesn't show up to the game and say, "Way to go, you get an extra 10 points." But if you don't go to practice, then you're most likely not going to play in the game. One, because you haven't had the opportunity to build up your skills, but also you haven't shown your teammates and your coach what you're capable of doing either. So just like practice is important in sports, it's also exceedingly important in mastery-based learning. Retention policy. We do have a retention policy. With mastery-based learning, we have the ability to really support students in so many different ways. And so we find that more often than not, if student is not passing a class, it has more to do with choices than with ability. So we do like to put a retention policy in place so that students are understanding what the consequences are for not completing work or passing a course. So if a student has 20 or more absences, ends a year with a failing grade in any core course or a failing grade in two or more related arts courses, they will either be placed in summer school or considered for retention. Additionally, if you have an 8th grader, if they get to the end of Q4 and they are not currently passing, they will also not be allowed to attend the 8th grade promotion ceremony. I know report cards went out last week, so and we're also working on communicating with families of students who may be in this area. So if you have questions, please let us know. We are working with your students, but we do want to make sure that they are making the best choices for their own learning. Textbooks and materials. We don't really have a lot of textbooks because they're either class sets or online. But any sort of material that your student is assigned, just like with Chromebooks, they are responsible for taking care of it. Lastly is behavior policy. So what we did is Ms. Viltakis and I looked at our referrals, which is really the documentation from the teachers when some sort of incident or offense happens. And we had our most common one. So class disruptions is pretty common. We really want to make sure that students have the opportunity to learn and that the teacher has the opportunity to teach. And so if any student is disrupting that, then that's something that we have to address. Defiance is another one that we see quite often. We definitely understand that middle schoolers can be emotional at times and may not respond the most appropriate way. But if we see them making that choice of disrespect on a regular basis, that's when it does become an issue. Horseplay, hitting, pushing, shoving, and fighting is also a common issue. We don't find that most of our students really get into fights, but they do tend to put their hands on each other, goofing off. And a lot of times what starts out as horseplay can either still end in someone getting hurt or someone getting mad and then starting to get into more of a fighting position. So that's why we just tell our students no sort of horseplay, hitting, pushing, shoving, or fighting is allowed. They really just need to keep their hands off of each other. And if they're having an issue with someone, they need to let us know so that we can help them work through that situation. Threat, harassment, and intimidation typically boils down to someone being mean. I don't understand why kids like to be mean to each other. It doesn't make any sense to me, but sometimes they are. So if a student is consistently being mean, either to a particular person or to multiple people or just in general, those are the things that get reported to us and that we will address with that student. Failure to complete work is obviously a challenge that we want to work with your students on. Vaping is Not common necessarily in the middle school, but it does come up from time to time. Do know that any sort of vape is illegal for a student under the age of 21 to even possess, not just to use, but to actually possess it, to hold it. So please make sure that you're not giving any access to vapes at home, because obviously if a student does bring a vape to school, that can carry very serious consequences. Lastly is vandalism. A lot of times when we talk about vandalism, we think of something being completely destroyed. But more often than not in schools, it's more of just damaging something that isn't yours. So that could be something like hitting someone else's Chromebook, or knocking, it may be purposefully, knocking someone's water over and it's spilling into their book bag. That could be just dirtying up the bathroom, wetting paper towels and throwing them up against the wall. Because honestly, if they're harming property that isn't theirs or causing someone else to have to clean up after them, that's really not something that we want for our students. So that is something that we will address under that. So that's just a quick overview of some of the just bits of information we shared with our students last week. And we wanted to make sure it was out there and available for our parents and families as well. We are definitely here to support your kids and make them be successful. We do set high expectations for our kids here, but that is one of the ways that we help them to be successful in their future. So we're really excited to be able to partner with you as we work with your kids. Have a great day.